Well, boy, this has been a long time coming. I'm really excited about today. We landed on a couple topics that I think our listeners are just going to really gravitate towards and be excited about.
And I started my own agency when I was about 20. I went to have an internship at a flower import and export company. So a few weeks in, I already knew more than them. Over the next 12 years, I built that out to an agency of 20 people.
What types of campaigns you worked on? What types of organic traffic?
Our first digital PR campaign for a locksmith, and we got a solid 123 links from that, which especially in the Netherlands is huge. The next 3 campaigns failed completely 3 years ago. So I got acquired by Leeds, where I am now both a shareholder and the director of search. In total, the traffic combined of all the websites that we own is somewhere between 500k visits per month and about 5 million visits per month on the high end.
What's the best way when outreaching to try to get those original data sets featured?
That subject line is so incredibly important. So we sent out campaigns where we had 0 response, changed the subject line 2 weeks later, sent it again, and all of a sudden we got 50 links.
Maybe let's dive into some of those other approaches.
So if you want to get links from government, you need to create content that aligns with that, regardless of search volumes, regardless of if it's trending on Twitter or whatever.
Anything else on digital PR?
Yeah, so I wanted to give a good tip. When I talk to people, they say, well, then you need to write like 100 pages and then be lucky that 1 or 2 of them are happening. Well, what we did is we made this process more scalable. So what we now do is
All right, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman, and today we are joined by Bart VanderMeer. Bart, welcome on board. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm great.
Well, boy, this has been a long time coming. I'm really excited about today. It's funny because with your story and with a lot of the things that you're involved in, there were so many different things we could focus today's podcast on. We landed on a couple topics that I think our listeners are just going to really gravitate towards and be excited about. Before we get into that, though, maybe give us some backstory on yourself. Introduce us to who you are.
Sure. My name is Bart VanderMeer. I live in the Netherlands. Been doing SEO and digital marketing for over 15 years now. Long-time listener and fan of the Niche Pursuits podcast or YouTube channel. And I started my own agency when I was about 20, when I was in university. I went to have an internship at a flower import and export company.
Really?
And after about 2 weeks, I knew that this was an enormous company who didn't know anything about digital. So a few weeks in, I already knew more than them, even though I was the intern. And that made me think that there's probably some money to be earned here in some way. So I finished my internship designing and getting functionally ready of a web shop, which was a lot of fun to do. And after that, I started my own company, which sounds great, but I didn't have real clients and I didn't have a good idea of what to do, but I thought it was fun, so why not? So I spent the remainder of my years in university getting like 1 or 2 clients, making $300 a month, but I was still living at home in university. I didn't need much more than that. But I did find out a few things, and one of it was I don't like programming websites, I don't like designing websites, and I definitely don't like selling websites because it's a one-off thing. Right? You sell a website and then you need to find a new customer. So I went and I looked for what can I do with a website that has some recurring revenue. And SEO was almost the first thing that I found. Probably via Moz, I think it was one of the few blogs that was active back in those days.
Yeah.
And I started from there. So as soon as I was done with university, I started trying to build my company. In about 6 months, I had my first part-time employee, which is great. I mean, it was just a young guy working a Saturday, but then all of a sudden you have someone who actually listens to you and does what you tell them, and that's a weird experience, but it was fun. And over the next 12 years, I built that out to a company, to an agency of 20 people. I sold that agency 3 years ago to Leads.io. So Leads.io is one of the largest lead generation companies in the world. So I got acquired by Leads, where I am now both a shareholder and the director of search, responsible for all things organic, which is a lot of SEO, some CRO, some YouTube, and some TikTok.
Hey everyone, Spencer here, founder of Niche Pursuits. Are you adding a new internal link pointing to each article you publish? You should be. Ever find it time-consuming and a bit overwhelming? Remembering what content you publish and deciding which anchor text to use can be a real headache. What if there was a better way? Well, that's exactly why I created Link Whisper. Simply click Add Inbound Internal Links, and Link Whisper will scan your site in seconds and suggest the most relevant links with appropriate anchor text for your new article. Now simply check the box next to the internal links you want to add, and Link Whisper will add these links for you. No need to go into each article, edit, and add the link. It's already done. No more manual internal link building or guesswork. Just efficient, accurate linking that saves you time and improves your SEO. Transform your content strategy with Link Whisper. Start linking smarter, not harder. Use the coupon code PODCAST for $15 off. Head over to linkwhisper.com and use coupon code PODCAST to get $15 off.
Quite a list of accomplishments. I synonymize with a lot of what you say about I started my first business in university as well, and no idea what I was doing, but I did start it for fun. It was
exactly.
fun. But you have to go through the school of hard knocks to learn all the lessons that other people get to learn by working at a company. Well, let's talk about some of the achievements that you've had, just to set the stage, just to give people an idea for what types of campaigns you've worked on, what types of organic traffic, and then we'll get into some of the details. We're talking some nitty-gritty tactics here today. I think you guys are going to be really excited because I've had a look at the agenda, and it's going to be fun to learn from you.
Yeah. So I think in light of this conversation, one of the most interesting achievements I had when I still had my agency was in 2016, where we run our first digital PR campaign for a locksmith. It's a tough niche. So it took us about 150 hours to create the campaign and do all the outreach. So way too long as it should, but was the first time. And we got a solid 123 links from that.
Wow.
Which, especially in the Netherlands, is huge. Well, on the one hand, that was fantastic, right? If that's your first campaign. But the problem is that from that point on, you think, this is easy, right? 100 links every campaign. What could go wrong? So that was in 2016. That was really interesting, but it also screwed us up because the next 3 campaigns failed completely, and we had to do some rebalancing of our expectations and the client's expectations.
Yeah.
But it was it was a lot of fun. In terms of achievements for at Leads, where I am now, so we own really large websites. So in total, depending on the season, the traffic combined of all the websites that we own is somewhere between 500K on the low end, 500K visits per month, and about 5 million visits per month on the high end. And that has to do with one of the websites we own is Guide Piscine in France, and it's the largest pool website in the world. But the traffic really spikes when temperatures spike. So June, July, August, it could receive several million visits per month. And then when it's snowing, not so much.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we own several sites in the UK, in Denmark, in France. We also own Pripose, which is a pretty big website. Sweden, Norway, all across Europe, essentially.
Is it? Mm-hmm. I mean, you kind of teased it, and it's one of the first topics we have to discuss. I know a lot of people are very interested in digital PR, and you talked about a very successful campaign you had, but you also talked about the challenges that you've had with digital PR, and it's obviously has evolved a lot over the years as well. Let's let's dive into digital PR as maybe our first topic, and set the stage for what digital PR looks like right now and how it might differ from other more traditional methods that go up against it.
Yeah. I mean, I love digital PR ever since the first campaign in 2016. So what I feel is that digital PR, the meaning of the world has changed a lot by the success of two companies. So Kerry Rose, I think, really introduced digital PR to a lot of people and made it sexy and sellable. And currently Ferry is just doing so well with his company and having so much reach that they sort of claim how to do digital PR, which they should. They're hugely successful and an example for a lot of people. But they also skewed the term where I think most people, when they think about digital PR, are only thinking about how do I get links from news outlets. While I view digital PR more holistically, thinking how can I get links from high authority sources that I cannot buy, which means universities, non-profits, government, magazines or B2B sites. But it also means like from actual companies. We're active in lead gen, so it could be stores, it could be like installers that are our clients. It also means getting links from competitors, which we actually do on a regular basis. And all of these type of links, you probably can't get with the digital PR campaigns that you do if you want to get links from news outlets. So there's so much more than just the newspapers that you're thinking of when you think of digital PR. And not only does it make you different than your competitors, if you were to get, like, let's say, links from educational sites like universities on a regular basis, it also requires a different approach that maybe your competitor doesn't know about. So I would like people to talk about digital PR more in thinking about high authority sources and not just newspapers. Essentially, any link from any website where you could point to and say, I would love to have a link from that website, there is a digital PR way to get that link. You just need to know the approach, and hopefully I can share a few in this podcast.
Well, I was about to say, I mean, that's the elephant in the room. Like, don't let me get in the way. Start talking. I do wonder, maybe as a lead in, like if some of the more we'll call it typical digital PR methods, like going after journalists and magazines, if that's because it's easier or if that's because it's more ubiquitous. But when you say things like government websites, when you say things like universities, educational domains, like these are the holy grail of links. So yes, let's get into talking about it, but definitely go into talking about it from a standpoint of how you guys have approached this and some of the techniques you guys have used.
So let's start with the news outlets, which I think is the more familiar one. So the reason people target it is because some tools like Mudrack have made it relatively easy. You have a database filled with journalists, so you create a press release, send it out to a few hundred or a few thousand journalists, and then hope you get some links in to that page or to your homepage. So that is it's becoming more commoditized and more straightforward. You just need a good topic and some research potentially. So what we're doing is we're adding twists to that type of research, to that type of outreach by doing our own research, which you can do very easily. So if anyone is listening or looking at this video and has a site with decent traffic, what you can do is install a tool like Hotjar that can get you a pop-up on the screen, or maybe via opt-in Monster, and ask a question or make a statement to which people will respond. So in a lot of countries, there's these topics that everyone has an opinion about. Like we discussed before we started recording about, is it niche or is it niche, right? It's an ongoing debate. And in a lot of countries, you have topics like this where people have a very strong opinion. So What you could say is ask the question, do you think it's A or B? Or you could make a statement saying the correct phrasing is X, yes or no. And that way, you can gather relatively easy data about a topic which is almost guaranteed to get some form of attention. You could then follow that up by asking people for like, where do you live? So you could make the campaign geographical, saying people, I don't know, in the north say more of this answer, people in the south say more of that answer, or you can ask about their age or their income or whatever you want. But just by asking one question, having about a 1% response rate is what we tend to see if we do a proper campaign. You could easily run a few of those campaigns per year if you have a site with at least some traffic. But you will have original data that only you have. And what that allows you to do is increase your chance a lot of being mentioned somewhere. And you can even go a step further by making it a reoccurring thing. So by doing the same thing every year, and then you get reoccurring data and you can see the differences throughout time. And journalists will, through the years, start recognizing you for this one topic or this one question or this one survey. So that's a very easy way to do active campaigns towards news outlets, but with a twist by having your original data. And I don't see most people use that. We all know about statistics and government databases and all of that, but this is really simple to do.
What's the best way when outreaching to try to get those original data sets featured? I think that's probably a stumbling block for a lot of people. And are there any tips you have to increase the amount of interest that your data sets will get?
The best tip I could give is send out your campaigns multiple times, but just change the headline of the email. The headline or the subject line, I mean, that subject line is so incredibly important. It could be, so we've sent out campaigns where we had 0 response, changed the subject line 2 weeks later, send it again, and all of a sudden we got 50 links.
Interesting.
That is very common. So if your data set or your press release doesn't get attention, it is very much worth it to re-angle just the subject line and send it again, and maybe even try 3, 4, 5 times until you get it right. Using AI to help you think works really well. So I would definitely suggest using one of the LLMs to help you out with coming up with new headlines or subject lines.
So that tackles the news side of things. You talked about it being, a more traditional or certainly a more standardized approach that a lot of people, especially in the beginning, will take to digital PR. But you also mentioned a lot of other approaches. Maybe let's dive into some of those other approaches.
Yeah, for sure. So I think government is what a lot of people would want. And it's also interesting how you should tackle that. So government doesn't care about links and content on their website and all of those things. They care about their citizens. That's the idea. So they publish a lot, but they publish about themes that are going on in society. So if you want to get links from government, you need to create content that aligns with that, regardless of search volumes, regardless of if it's trending on Twitter or whatever. So a very simple example is one of the best I've ever seen actually in the Netherlands. It's not our site, but I'll use it. Is every local government cares about their elderly. So almost all local government publishes about elderly safety, about loneliness, about accessibility, all those things. So there's one company in the Netherlands who made a great guide about how elderly can safely call via the internet. So it's just a guide to, how do you use Skype? How do you use WhatsApp? All these different ways to video call via the internet and to do it safely. I think that thing got 100+ links in the Netherlands from local government because it is something, especially during Corona, but also before and after, that was important for them to help their citizens with. So they care about elderly, they care about schools, they care about safety, they care about the how good it is to live in that community. And if you can write about those topics, it's usually just a matter of time before you start getting in government links. And an easy way to understand what is important to them is to simply go to your local government site and see what they are publishing about. And if you're lucky, you'll have a local government site that actually has the themes categorized on their homepage or really easy to see. So the problem that most SEOs have with this approach is that they are so used to writing about something that has search volume as opposed to writing for something of which we know people look for. It's just in such low numbers that it doesn't show up. So we've done this a lot of times. To writing about burglaries, for example, tends to attract a lot of links because it's around safety. Writing about the climate, so the air pollution and the how the well-being of the people in terms of how well the government is doing. Are they putting down solar panels? Are they helping with sustainability? All these different topics that are important for local government. The same applies for national governments, and it's usually also around the same topics, but you need to phrase your information differently because local government cares about them and maybe the neighboring cities, and national government cares about the big cities and the big chunks of land, whether that's provinces or states or whatever. So that is a very straightforward way to pick up government links on a regular basis, but you need to publish content about the right topics, and you need to be patient because there's no way to actively send an email out to government and then get a response, hey, this looks great, here's my link. That's usually not how it works.
What are the data sets or the information behind this type of content? Is it a similar approach as to what you talked about with collecting data for an outreach campaign to more like a newspaper or a journalist, or is it a different way to collect this kind of data?
So both could work. So what we found is as long as you have data that answers the topic or the question that is important to them, it will work. Most government already publishes a lot around this data, but they usually publish it in a format that is not directly usable. In a lot of cases, it's a matter of taking a big local data set that's, for example, based on postcodes and changing that into cities or multiplicities or provinces. So just making this data, turn it into these areas, and now it's usable, and now they will link to it. We've never had real trouble getting the data that we need. Worst case scenario, if there is no data or if none of it's usable, you could do an own survey, which could be like 2,500 euros or sometimes even 5,000. So I understand that not everyone can do it. But you could have a company do a survey of people, ask a lot of questions, and then you can publish like maybe 10 or even 20 articles just based on this one survey to attract a lot of links. So the data is always there for you to get. It could be relatively expensive though.
One more question on that. You talked about how SEOs make a mistake a lot of times by trying to come up with topics to write about as it relates to this topic of digital PR, trying to come up with them based on search volume, So if you're not writing for search volume and you produce these pieces, these articles, how are they getting discovered by local governments, national governments? What is the process? If outreach doesn't work, which makes sense, what is the process they end up getting discovered down the road?
So they are searching for it. It's just the volumes are so low that most tools don't find them. So if you look at Google Search Console, there's plenty of impressions and there's plenty of clicks. I mean, with plenty, I mean like a few dozen. But you need the right clicks. That's much more important than having volume. And that's just very hard to convince SEOs of, because their attitude is usually the more people search for something, the more people can find it, and therefore the more links I will get. And that's just not necessarily the case, and it's hard to make that switch.
Okay. Any examples of campaigns that you attracted some of these kind of links on, whether it's on the news side, whether it's on the the more university or government side?
Yeah, for sure. So we had two very successful campaigns in the past, which was we saw that both local and national government and a lot of nonprofits were talking about the plastic straws and plastic cups. It was also, I don't know if you have it in the United States, but in the Netherlands you have a channel where you can see all the debates that are going on, and you can see what they talk about and what they ask questions about. And you even there you could see this topic coming back and back again. So we wrote a piece about that, about the pollution of plastic straws. Relatively simple page, mostly based with statistics. I think it attracts 100, 200 links every year.
Jeez.
I think it is slowing down. The same for plastic cups. I think the topic is tackled. The laws have changed, so a lot of it is now cardboard. But we also have a page about how, as an individual, you can be more eco-friendly. So this is all published on Greenmatch. Greenmatch is our sustainability website, so it completely aligns with our overall brand of the website. And we have an eco-friendly post that draws in a bunch of links every month from government, from nonprofits, from bloggers, from companies, everyone who's talking about how can you as an individual be more eco-friendly. They search for the topic, we rank either number 1 or we rank in the top 5, and we get a lot of links from it. I don't have the figures here, you can check in Ahrefs or SEMrush, but it gets a lot of links.
Right.
So these are not, I mean, the eco-friendly search volume is really high, but the plastic straw and the plastic cup search volume has never been extremely high. But it is being talked about everywhere, or at least with the right people.
Right.
So there's several hundred links per article right there.
Hey, Jared here. Just a quick word from our sponsor, and then we'll get right back to the episode. If you want to see one of Niche Site Lady's websites, she has a little case study going on. The site is called veganwins.co.uk, and she's sharing everything she's doing with it publicly. The site was built for her by Web Asset Builders, and you can get one done for yourself as well. These social-first niche websites are designed to capture the attention of people on Facebook, complete with engaging content, visuals, and even newsletter lead magnets. Check out webassetbuilders.com if you'd like to learn more. They even have installment payment options available. You can use coupon code NICHEPURSUITS on checkout to get 20% off all offers. Again, that's webassetbuilders.com. Coupon code NICHEPURSUITS, all one word, for 20% off. All right, now back to the episode. Anything else on digital PR before we kind of move along to some of the other topics?
Yeah, so I wanted to give a good tip, because these are like individual small things, but when I talk to people, they say, well, then you need to write like 100 pages and then be lucky that 1 or 2 of them, are happening. Well, what we did is we made this process more scalable. So what we now do is we looked at Greenmatch, site about sustainability. So one of the things that is a lot in the news and fits our brand is if people discuss, is X bad for the environment? So based on the plastic straws and the plastic cups, there are a lot of products that could potentially be bad for the environment. So what we did is we made a list of products that could fit into this category. We found about 100 that had some search volume, so let's say 10 or 20 search volume, and that were also regularly shown in the news. So what is in the news right now? It's lithium and batteries. It's in the news a lot. So we made pages, is lithium bad for the environment? Or is lithium mining bad for the environment? Are batteries bad for the environment? And we have a whole list of, is X bad for the environment? And we started making page and page and page of that. And what you'll see is that this makes the whole process very scalable, because you can use the same structure of writing for every page. The writers know the type of information they need to look for. so we can make a page really quickly, fill it up with statistics, get our own statistics if we feel that the page is not good enough, and therefore make it much more scalable, much more efficient, and create a net. And within this net, there's always something that is of interest, and there's always something attracting links.
That's a good tip. Yeah, I was going to say, it does seem, I don't want to say like a volume game, but there's certainly a volume aspect to it. So that's a tip that it helps make sense, because that's the first thing I'm thinking is, man, you got to publish a decent amount of content at scale, you know? I mean, not a volume play, but more than one piece. I think that's the important thing to get across.
Yeah. And what can happen is once you have, let's say, 50 pages, then all of a sudden something can be newsworthy, and you can attract like 50 links in a matter of a week without you having to do anything.
That's good. Okay. I want to go back to the topic of organic traffic, because you kind of mentioned at the outset, like, hey, we're driving anywhere from 500 to 5 million page views a month organically. Let's get into some of those tactics and maybe talk about the strategies that you've seen work. And of course, you know, SEO is evolving and has evolved in the age of AI and in the age of AI overviews and these types of components. So certainly some of your strategies that have worked, you know, in recent years to drive this kind of traffic.
Yeah. So the same thing that works really well for digital PR is the thing that we use as our weapon against AI, to be mentioned in the AI overviews, to get the feature snippet. And for us, the key is original data. That's what we're using to create pages, to create digital PR, to help our CRO efforts. The key really is original data, and there are various ways to get that. But that is what we're using to drive our traffic. We want to be creating pages that are so well done and have so much unique information that AIs, LLMs or the AI overviews simply cannot not mention us, because they would be doing a disservice to whoever is looking for an answer. And we get this original data by doing surveys on our own website, by making sure we get people's email addresses so we can do surveys later on. We use companies that do surveys for us. But we don't just survey the consumer, we're also actively surveying installer companies, because consumers know what they want and what they expect, and they have an opinion about everything, but installers know the market. So for example, solar panels, they can see price increases coming in faster than consumers can, or than news outlets can spot them. So if we ask them, what is your outlook for the next 3 to 6 months? And they say, well, prices are definitely going to increase because of X, Y, Z. We have something original we can publish. We can drive PR with that. We can put it on our pages saying, get solar panels now, because over the next 6 months, we expect the price to increase with X percentage. So all these types of original data and understanding the market and applying that to our pages helps us stand out from competitors, and hopefully in the eyes of Google and the LLMs be the source to go to, because we have something that others don't have.
How does all this original data play into keyword research and targeting topics that people are searching for? In the last phase, talking about digital PR, it really was more about, hey, you don't need search volume. You need the right data to go in front of the people that are going to link to you, that need to use it. But this is a bit of a different occasion, right? You're trying to get that search volume to some degree just to get the amount of traffic that you're getting. So how does all this original data play into things like keyword research, topic, ideation, all that sort of stuff?
So we have, we do the traditional keyword research about any vertical that we're active in. We map out the website, map out the structure, create all those pages. So I think we don't have to go into that. I think that's sort of a well-established process for most SEOs. But then once we start creating the page, we look at what would be the perfect page in the eyes of the consumer. What would they want to know? What answers do they need to which questions? And how would we structure it? And once we have all of that, we see, all right, so what do we know? Do we have all the information or don't we? If we don't have the information, we try to get it. Could also be by consulting experts. Maybe they already have the answer. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a survey. And once we have all of that ready, then sort of SEO comes into play. For example, are we going to give this answer in 3,000 words, or do we prefer to be more to 2,000? Do we need to have a tool because the search intent of this page clearly requires a tool and all competitors have it as well? So we map out the customer needs, and then we add SEO to that, instead of the other way around, where you structure your website, your web page based on competitors, H1s, H2, H3s, tick all your keyword boxes, etc. And what you then end up with usually is the same as what's already on the SERPs at that point in time. So hopefully by this approach, we try to do things more original, and hopefully we get rewarded for that, which sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, unfortunately.
For people listening who are small in terms of their size of team, a lot of people, probably individuals, maybe have a small team that they work with, VAs, writers, but small team, right? Like a lot of this does sound like a big effort. It could just be the way it sounds, but certainly there's a lot of moving parts here. Like, what are your tips for people who have smaller teams when it comes to digital PR, data-driven SEO tactics, what we've been talking about?
Yeah. So I have an example of a digital PR campaign, which I did. I didn't do it. Someone from a team did it, but on their own. So what they did is they found all the dog shelters in the Netherlands. It's 130. They found them by hand, listed all the emails, listed all the information, send them a short survey. I think it was 5 questions. And we already, based on the website, found like the size of the company and the geographical location. We got an answer from about a third of the total websites. What is that? 40-ish answered. And that was good enough for it to be a digital PR campaign. So it took, I think, about 2 days of work and then another day to compile all the results and make something of it. But it was 3 days work, and it got us 10-ish links. So not too bad, especially if you're a one-man person or one-man show. So if you are alone and you have time, but no other resources, I would highly recommend looking at, can you niche something down until you get a relatively small enough size that you could handle it on your own, but ask a question or try to make a statement where the answer is still really interesting. If you look at SEO, if I were to publish a blog post saying the top 100 SEO experts answered this question, well, if the question is good enough, that's probably really interesting. But you could niche it down, saying the top 100 SEO experts from the UK, or you could even say the 100 experts from Wales. So you could niche it down. As long as the topic is still interesting, there's a good chance that people will still read it. You don't need thousands of responses per se to make something interesting.
What about, any pitfalls, problems to avoid, things you've seen not work well, ideas you've had that maybe you've seen over time consistently not perform as well? Like, what are some things people can avoid so they don't end up at the end of a big data collection and digital PR campaign with not much to show for it?
If at all possible, start with the end in mind. So if you start collecting data or start a survey, you want to know what is the question that this data needs answering. And ideally, it doesn't matter what the answer is, because it's always going to be worthwhile to talk about. So if 100% of people agree, that's news. If 0% agrees, that's also news. And if it's 50-50, it's still news. That's the topic that you need to think about. I think that's the most important tip I can give. So before you start doing anything, if you have the right question to ask, find the data to answer it, and then re-angle the subject line until you hit gold.
Yep. For people listening who don't have a lot of traffic, who are thinking to themselves, man, I really actually need all these amazing links. I need all this original data so that I can start driving more organic traffic. It's almost a chicken or the egg sort of scenario for some people because they don't have that traffic yet, but they still want to do these types of campaigns. They still want to create these kinds of articles, but it would take a significant amount of time to collect enough data. And you talked about some of that outreach. That example of the dog kennel was, the dog shelter was fantastic. What are some other tips for people who don't have enough traffic? Do you ever run paid ads? Are there other ways to get this data so that they can think outside the box about it?
Yeah, 100%. So Meta, Facebook is really scalable. So if and relatively cheap depending on your audience, but you can go as low as like 10 cents per answered question. So that is relatively cheap. What I would also ask is, or see if there's anyone in your network you could partner with. So maybe there's someone on LinkedIn who could run a poll for you. Maybe there's someone on LinkedIn you could connect to who actually runs a big site. So if you don't have the traffic and you don't want to send out all the emails, you need to find a partner who's willing to work with you essentially, because you need to get the information from somewhere. And of course, digging through data sets is always an option because there is so much data out there, and the LLMs, especially the deep research, can help you make the process of finding it a lot easier. If you don't have the traffic, then you need to be ready to invest time in something, right? I don't have a magic wand, unfortunately, to wave and have a great campaign.
No easy button here.
Not yet. But so we've had a lot of trouble finding the proper data before when we couldn't run our own surveys yet. And I think the deep research can really help with that because they seem to have a grasp on finding databases and PDFs and Excel files much better than Google does or than LLMs did before.
That was going to be one of my questions. I'm glad you mentioned it. Again, it's probably right, just right brain for you. It's so simple now. It's become, a habit that you're used to. But for people who are trying to find data sets and don't have experience finding them, what types of searches or queries or methods do you recommend people go about to find these kind of data sets they can start with? I know we're also talking about collecting your own data, but if you're looking for data that's already been published, what are some good ways to go about finding them?
I think Wikipedia could be an excellent source if you just search for your topic on Wikipedia and they reference tons of sources at the bottom. I know that journalists also tend to start with a new topic. They tend to go to Wikipedia and then go to the sources to find their experts. There are tons of government websites. I mean, I think it's been talked about a lot, right, during the years at the Niche Pursuit podcast. Like every country has their own set of databases that they publish on a regular basis. What I think what might help people is if you look at what newspapers published about last year and then see if you can find an updated version of that database, because a lot of topics reoccur every year or every quarter.
That's good.
And if you can time it and plan it, you might be the first one to actually publish it. So we did something interesting in the Netherlands where we knew that a certain database was published half of February every year. So we were literally refreshing the site a couple times a day to be there first, because we knew the police would do a press release a week later based on that data. So we wanted to beat them, which we did, which got us a lot of attention, just because we figured out that data set is coming online roughly then and then, and we were ready to grab it, rework it, and send it out. So you don't even need to think of your own campaigns in some cases if you can find a recurring topic. And a lot of the things that the government cares about are actually reoccurring topics, like safety, like care, like income levels, housing, all of those things.
That's good. Man, that's really good. That's a great example. Starting to wrap up here, but I wanted to ask you about software or tools that might make any of this easier. You mentioned offhandedly Muckrack. I wrote it down. That's a common one, a popular one. That's on the outreach side. You mentioned for data collection, Hotjar. You've kind of touched on a couple of them, but just to kind of ask that question and circle the wagons on software tools that you find helpful that people might not have heard of or need a vote of confidence from you on.
Yeah, so I don't think we have any particular gem that we use that no one's ever heard of. As we are also, quite a large company, we tend to use the larger software tools like Modrec. So I don't think I have anything specific there to offer. We use Ahrefs. We live in Ahrefs. Modrec, and there's another one in the UK that we use for outreach. Every country has their own Modrec version. We use those tools. We use LLMs a lot. We still build things in spreadsheets if we need to. So I don't have any gems for you in that regard, unfortunately.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You actually do. You just mentioned a bunch of them, but to your point, I'm sure a lot of them are software or tools people have heard of, and that's another encouragement right there. So, hey, any final thoughts from you? I mean, I know this is, from a high level, this is kind of about scaling digital PR and SEO using a unique approach, which is your own data and the own data you found. Any final thoughts as we wrap up here? Things we didn't cover that you want to make sure you share, and final words.
Well, I would encourage everyone to get started with digital PR if you haven't done anything with digital PR yet. I think it's something that will always retain their value. I think it's you can do a lot more than you think. You can actually get links from competitors. You can get links from actual companies if you work on it. And most importantly, let go of the search volumes when trying to get links, get the real links, and try to either approach them as a human or write about topics that you they care about, and start trying with it. Obviously, you probably will fail at your first attempt, as we all do, but hopefully the third time or the fourth time, you might hit a gold mine, and that could be the difference between getting no links and getting 10, 20, or maybe even 50 links.
I think it's a really good point you made. Just want to double down on that. If you are going into this and the first campaign does not go well, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a flawed or failed strategy. To your point, you've been doing this for years and years and years, and you still have some flops. And so I think that's a good point of encouragement, is just getting better and trying to improve every time, and just knowing that eventually the process does kick in.
I mean, our success rate currently is about 25% with all the experience that we have. So please don't get discouraged if something doesn't work out.
Hey, Bart, this has been really, really good. Really, really fun interview. I'm glad we got this put together. I'm glad you were here and you joined us. How can people follow along with what you're doing, connect with you if they want, etc.?
Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can always talk about SEO, digital PR, anything like that.
I'll get a link for us in the show notes to your LinkedIn. And I know that you are with leads.io as well. Thank you for coming on and sharing, Bart. Really appreciate it. And until we talk again next time.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Niche Pursuits podcast. I just wanted to remind you that if you are ready to start building smarter, faster, and easier internal links, you should check out Link Whisper. You can get $15 off Link Whisper when you use the coupon code PODCAST at checkout. Head over to linkwhisper.com and use the code PODCAST in order to save $15. Thanks again for listening.